So yeah, that's what flame arrows can do for you. Just look at him. He's beautiful. Behind a rock, not bothering anybody. Just slowly trickling down like the economy. Hey everybody, what's going on? ShabbyDoo here, and today we are going to talk about the bows in Icarus, specifically the tier 1 and 2 bows and the corresponding ammo, because these are the two bows you're going to use for the majority of your missions, and not even so much with the recurve or the compound bow up in T3 and 4. So I figured we'd do a nice big overview of this, and then a little later down the line we'll do another video of the tier 3 and 4 bows, but at that point use the guns. But all right, without further ado, let's talk stats here. So first of all, we have two bows. We've got the wood bow, which is our tier 1 bow, which only has the basic stats: ammo capacity 1, which is your arrow, rate of fire 300 per minute, good luck, and 700 milliseconds to reload, so less than a second. Same stats for the longbow or the tier 2 bow, and we've got 25% projectile damage. The other noticeable difference is you have 50% more durability with the longbow, 7,500 compared to the 5,000. So that's the difference between the two bows. The only difference really besides durability is that extra 25% projectile damage, which, don't be fooled, that is a lot. So now let's talk about ammo. Going up in order here, we've got the stone arrow, 31 to 35 projectile damage with a 50% chance to break. Bone arrows, 54 to 60, much better than the stone arrows. 10% critical damage, that's huge, okay? That is at the end of all damage calculation. And then only a 20% chance to break. And then lastly, so these are both tier 1 arrows. And the next arrow up, slightly better, so this one will be 3 points higher than its maximum. 63 to 70 damage with an extra 5% critical damage, but it has a 30% chance to break rather than the 20% from the bone arrows. So a little higher chance, but the damage is going to be a lot better with that 63 to 70 and extra 5% critical. Then we've got our DOT arrows, okay? We'll go over these at the very end, but for the fire arrow, 13 to 15 projectile damage, and it'll set things on fire. And the poison arrow, let me move these out of the way, there we go. Poison arrow, which is 13 to 15% projectile damage as well, and it'll give a poison debuff, and also a 10,000% chance to break. And then finally, we've got our kind of miscellaneous arrow. We've got the flare arrow. Like a thunderstorm's coming. It's only got a 100% chance to break, unlike the poison arrow's 10,000% chance to break. But the flare arrow does 13 to 15 damage, but this isn't meant to be shot at creatures. It's meant to be shot in the air, and we'll do this one last. So if you want to see that, make sure you stick around for the whole video. All right, let's head out into the wild and check out the base damages for using each of these arrows with the tier 1 and the tier 2 bows, so you can really see the differences. So let's talk about damage here, right? So it doesn't matter what we hit, but the deal is I want to make sure we're not being seen so that we get the stealth damage, because I want to base this off of all the stealth damages, right? And we'll see what non-stealth damage looks like as well. So we've got a warthog that was just crossing the water here. Here we go. So I'm stealth, and it looks like he's stuck, so that's great. So I've got stone arrows equipped for both the hunting bow and the wood bow. So let's take the wood bow first and see a stealth shot. And I've got kill cam off so we can see the damage. Oops, forgot, no kill cam. So 330 with a headshot, and then 136. So that's your base damages with the wood bow. 330, so plus or minus 10 because of the variable damage in stone arrows. We'll call it 330, and then 136. So big difference, even though, so it's about a little over 200% damage. I think it's 250% specifically for damages when stealth. So that's why it's important. So let's find another creature, and let's hit it. And the bison went across the river. That's unfortunate. And let's hit him with the tier 2 bow so we can see the difference. Obviously, it'll be a 25% difference. So let's see the math. All right, we got a bison over here. Let's flank him, get the better shot, and see what our damage looks like with the tier 2 bow here, the longbow. Don't look up. That just literally went through him. 400 damage. So we went from the 330 to 400. So that's 25% more. And that's the different, and these are without talents too, by the way. I want to make that very clear. These are talentless. And let's get a non-sneak attack here. 152. So another extra 20% and extra 20 damage there. So obviously, and these are talentless. I didn't mention that at the beginning here, but this is 0 talents into the bow. So this is how your damages will reflect if you never put a talent into the bow. Okay. So now we've seen stone. Let's check out the difference in bone. So I've got a dear friend here. I've got my tier 1 bow, the wood bow, and we've got a bone arrow in. So let's take the shot. 605 compared to 330. 605 is our damage. And all of these are going to start one-shotting everything, so we're going to base all of our damage off of sneak attacks, because that's your best option for a bow, of course. So that's what we'll base it off, and we've got a wolf here to get our next one here. 730. 730 is our number with the tier 5. Another hundo. So, you know, as we get higher up in the bows, it's getting much, much better. So that's the difference just from switching the bow and arrows. So, my opinion, if you don't have perks in the bow, you need to be using bow and arrows throughout most of your playthroughs here, because it's very important to get that extra damage so you can just one-shot everything. With bow and arrows and a tier 2 bow, you'll one-shot every creature out there besides your big creatures like your bears and... what's another creature? Bears? Yeah, bears. Bears and elephants and things like that. So here we go. We got a bison here while we were chit-chatting. So now let's see how a flint arrow looks. Let's get over here real quick. Get down so he doesn't see us. Shot. 665. Look, that's pretty much the damage of the tier 2 bow with a bone arrow, right? So now let's go with our tier 3 bow, or sorry, our tier 2 bow. And check out this damage here. Got another bison here. 852. Look at that. An extra 200 damage. Big difference. You should never be running around with a tier 1 bow. It is so easy to make a tier 2 bow that you are foolish if you do not use it. Okay? So let's talk about DOT now, right? So obviously, end of the story here. Use better arrows, of course. My opinion is don't really waste your... Think of it one of two ways. If you have plentiful iron and you're in early missions where you're not going to go far into the tech tree, where you're not going to use steel, you're not making a tier 3 machine, you're not making a fabricator. So let's say you're playing this game at tier 2 for a lot of quick missions. Your best bet, find a cave, mine out a bunch of iron, and turn all that iron into flint arrows. Make yourself a tier 2 bow, and that's how you're going to run around. If you're going to be playing into the later games where you start building guns, you're going to be building the fabricator, I don't suggest making flint arrows, because at that point, it's just a waste of precious iron. At that, I would just use some bone arrows to get by until you start getting guns. Okay? So let's talk about DOT arrows now. So I'm only going to use them on the tier 2 because the point of a DOT, or damage over time, is not its projectile damage. As you can see, it's 13 to 15, so it's irrelevant. It's half of that of the stone arrow, but it's going to be that damage over time, okay? So let's slot in a fire arrow first. Hey, look, we've got a victim here. Okay, fire arrow in. Oh god, he's looking at me. Why do you have to look at me while I do this? There you go, and you can see the trajectory is low, and the... Oh, he ran into the river. Oh, he's still on fire. Guess water doesn't put out fires, but you can see it's doing about 10 damage a tick. Let's call it an average of 9, because sometimes we're seeing 9, sometimes we're seeing 8. And it will set other things on fire, I think, too, if they sit around for a bit. But you can see here, he's just kind of cruising around. And eventually, this fire will go out. Like, I've lit a bear on fire before, and then I tried to walk away from it to see if it would just die. And eventually, the fire DOT does end, which is a damn shame. All right, we've got a lovely buffalo here. So let's take a shot on him with our poison arrow. You can see the green tip. All right, and you can see it's doing 4 or 5 damage per tick there, which is even worse than the fire arrow. And honestly, absolutely garbage compared to what you need, because you need to use 2 spoiled meat to make this. We'll talk about material crafting in a second here, but let's, all right, and they stack. So you can put a DOT on of, you know, a couple. And the poison damages also stack on top of each other, so you can really lay on the damage for some boss monsters with these. But I mean, other than that, like, do I really think it's worth it? No, because if you have a gun or you land your headshots, it's not going to be a big deal, especially when you're using a tier 2 bow with some flint arrows. Now, let's take a quick peek ski here over at the flare arrows. But before we talk about the boring stuff, like all the materials required, remember, if you like this video, do hit that like button down below. Leave me a comment letting me know how helpful this was to you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well if you're loving this sweet Shabby content. But let's shoot this off and just see real quick. I'm going to shoot it right here. So you can see it glows like no other. I'm going to shoot another one this way, and I'm going to shoot it really high. So these things, if you watch some of the streams, we've used them in the streams every now and then at nighttime. It's nothing great. It's more for the memes because it's really stupid because that's just all it is. But it'll light up everything kind of like it's daytime with a little neon green. So it's pretty cute. It literally is what it says. It's a flare arrow, so, you know, if you didn't have markers on the map, which we do, that's what they're used for. I know there's one newer mission out there that says you can't see people on the map, but if that's the case, it's the only scenario where a flare arrow is really worth it. I mean, otherwise, just walk around with a torch rather than wasting all that sulfur. But all right, let's head into the cave, and let's talk building material breakdown. All right, so what are the costs for everything? Let's talk bows first. A bow, 30 fiber, 24 sticks. If you don't know how to get that, you're in the wrong video. Next, tier 2 bow, the longbow, 24 wood, 32 leather, 4 bones. Same statement applies. So really cheap. And obviously to make the crafting station, if you want to go into the specifics, 60 fiber, 50 wood, 12 stone, and 20 more leather. So that's just a couple kills and 2 trees to get everything we need to make all these bows. Now let's talk about the bows themselves. So for each individual arrow, for a stone arrow, I'm going to need a fiber, a stick, and a stone. Best way to do this is to turn logs into sticks with your lovely perk in the tech or the talent tree. Survival, get lumberyard, and then right here, unlocks the ability to turn wood into sticks. Then you go into the tech tree, tier 1, you scroll over and you make sure you get your blueprint unlock, and that'll turn 1 wood into 10 sticks. Never need sticks again. It is a bowman's wet dream. Next, we're going to talk bone arrow. So that's your 31 to 35 damage, 50% chance to break. A bone arrow, a stick, a leather, and 5 bones. Go do a lot of killing. Put some points into, talents, right here. Increase bone yield. If you want to go further down the hunting, you could. There's also more 15% more bone yield down here, but that's pretty far down and honestly, in my opinion, not really worth it. But that's an option. I do suggest getting this 15% yield up here. It's 1 point and very simple to get because you need to waste nothing else in hunting. So that's the bone arrow, 54 to 60 damage, 10% critical additional damage, and 20% break chance. Both of these are made in your inventory. The final arrow for regular DPS, there's a lot of storms today. Regular arrow for DPS is the Flint Arrow. Has to be made in the crafting bench along with a tier 2 bow because it is a tier 2 arrow. It is 1 leather, 1 stick, and a single iron ore. So 1 node will net you about 30 or so iron ore if you at least use your Shengong Dong pickaxe or better. So not a bad choice. Like I said, if you need a ton of iron, I don't suggest doing this. I suggest the bone and moving on from there and using those to start off with and make sure you keep your iron supply. But otherwise, a very good arrow. 63 to 70 damage, 15% critical damage bonus, and a 30% chance to break, because they do break more often than bone. So let's talk these DOT arrows that I don't suggest you use, but I'll tell you how to do them anyways, just in case you're a crazy person. So, for instance, the flare arrow, the meme arrow, a stone arrow, and 2 sulfur. That's a lot of materials for 1 arrow. That's completely useless. It's funny at night, but that's about it. Then we've got the poison arrow, 1 stone arrow, and 2 poison paste. To make a poison paste, we'll take a walk over here, or a mortar and pestle, and we need 2 spoiled meat and a sulfur. So that means we need 4 spoiled meat and 2 sulfur to make 1 poison arrow. That is a lot for nothing. And still made in your inventory. And then lastly, and certainly one of the least, we've got the flame arrow, and I can't find it in my little list here. Is that it right there? No, that's flare. There it is. fire arrow, 1 stone arrow, and 2 whole gunpowder. You don't even need 2 gunpowder to make a bullet for your rifle. But, oops, let's come over here. So, to those of you who don't know about gunpowder just yet, 1 gunpowder is a sulfur and 3 charcoal. So that means you're going to need 2 sulfur and 6 charcoal to make 1 fire arrow. Okay? So that's it. That is your major breakdown. I think the take-all, end-all of this is the bow is the best gun, the best tool in the game before guns. And I always suggest get your tier 2 bow right here, the longbow, the fastest, and use either bone if you're going to be going for the long haul, and flint if it's a nice quick mission, you're just rushing through as fast as possible. Use the flint because it's the cheapest to make in that sense, because you can get more quantity for the ease of volume that you can find iron ore just running around in any old cave. All right, guys, this is going to cut this video here. This was all about the tier 1 and 2 bows. Make sure you subscribe down below if you want to see how we use the machining bench here to make, I don't have the tech tree unlocked on this character because we're still working on it, but how you make the recurve bow and then the aluminum arrows and carbon arrows, followed by the tier 4 compound bow, titanium arrows, and composite arrows. We have all this unlocked on our other character. This is just our harvesting one, so we'll check it out in a little bit. So do subscribe if you do want to see that. Hit that like button as well if you found this useful, and leave me a comment letting me know what you think, and tell me what your favorite combination of bow and arrow is for mid, early, or even late game. But all right, guys, as usual, this has been ShabbyDoo, and I hope the rest of your day is not too shabby.